talk about the VA first.
Yeah.
You just paid a visit over since
Yes,
our
yep.
Phoenix VA. The VA went through a reduction in force plan, caused serious concerns not only among
Yeah.
people who work for the VA, but for our veterans as well. The VA secretary told me just this weekend, in fact, among nearly 3,000 other veterans at DAV National Convention, that the rifts are over. First, do you believe that? And in visiting the Phoenix VA here, what are they telling you how the rifts have impacted the mission here?
Sure. So the first initial plan was they were going to fire, get rid of 83,000 people. Now they're saying we're not only going to do that, we're going by attrition, we're going to basically get to 30,000 cuts. My fear and what I'm seeing is that that's still happening. I don't think they call those rifts, they're just saying we're not going to hire people, right? Rehire people once they retire. What I am hearing is this. 40% of the doctors that were offered a position at the VA have rejected their position at the VA. You're seeing about 1,500 nurses that also have rejected offers from the VA. So that's telling me right now that we're not meeting the demand. We need more doctors, we need more nurses. I just, as you said, was at the Phoenix VA, talking to them. They're seeing that problem. They're having a problem recruiting the people they need, whether it's doctors, nurses, different types of clinicians, because a lot of them, number one, can't compete really for the private sector, but number two, because of the instability that was caused by some of these announcements, there's a lot of these workers that just don't want to take the chance of moving their family here and potentially losing their position later. And so, one of the things I talked to our Veterans Administrator is to make sure that we clearly communicate that these are not going to continue to happen, or else we're always going to have a recruitment problem with the VA.
Right. Quickly, you had mentioned you've co-sponsored Senate Bill 2526, Fight for the American Dream Act. Fetterman and Kelly, on that co-sponsorship, you're talking about non-citizens being able to enlist. Can you speak 30 seconds on that?
Well, historically in this country, we've actually have allowed non-citizens to actually enlist, and some of them are green card holders, for example, so it's not uncommon. So some of the most famous Arizonans are actually green card holders that went and got the Medal of Honor for service to this country. But this allowed Dreamers actually to serve. Right now, they're not allowed to serve. And I think when it comes to having the best, the brightest, and most motivated people that have been here for a long time, we should give them that and offer them that opportunity to serve.
Recently, you've been, participating in some activity outside of the state of Arizona.
You've noticed?
Yes, I think a lot of people have. A town hall in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, Iowa State Fair, cooking in front of the grill, I believe there.
Yeah.
The question a lot of people are starting to wonder, are you planning to run for a higher office, president or vice president of the United States?
So, and I actually have been also doing other states. I think the ones that get noticed are the ones that are the swing states. Right now, focus is being a U.S. Senator, as I told you, being a new dad. I did learn a lot from running in Arizona. We're one of the most successful campaigns that were able to win in a state where Donald Trump won and we won by a sizable margin. The thing that's the problem with Democrats is that we don't know how to win anymore. We only go and win in these blue states, and we don't actually know how to talk to, Republicans, Democrats, conservative Democrats, independents, unless they're in this very safe little area. And the only way we're really going to have a national party is if we actually talk to all of America. So right now, I'm going and trying to teach, the rest of the Democratic Party in states that we used to be competitive in to learn how to get back into the fight and actually talk to everyday Americans instead of staying in their safe bubble.
So are you planning to run for president or vice president?
No.
From a messaging standpoint, on your point of messaging, though, with the Democratic Party here, if due north on a compass, in your opinion, is deemed the best messaging for the Democratic Party, where do you currently see the Democratic Party on that compass, and what are you doing to change the direction of that needle?
So I think we've moved some in the right direction since the election, but we're not definitely due north. If anything, we're a little more like northeast or northwest, getting to that direction. We are still not right when it comes to border security and immigration. Our messaging tends to be either or, where I think most of America and definitely Arizona is pretty moderate when it comes to this issue. They want a secure border. I think they appreciate what the president has done in terms of securing the border. I certainly think that that's something that we should compliment him on, and we should figure out how to make that sustainable. I don't enjoy and appreciate and don't want to use military personnel for that, but why not hire more Border Patrol to make sure we're hitting those goals? But then let's also find a humane way to deal with the people that are here in this country that, other than their entry, are not here, have not done anything illegal. For example, I had that meeting earlier with the Kelly Yu family. She owns 3 Asian restaurants. She came here to this country trying to avoid the one-child policy in China where they're going to make her abort her baby girl. Something that we are very proud, we take a lot of pride in this country that we're able to take refugees like this, and now we're kicking her out. How are we safer by doing this? How are we a better country by doing this? She's got 2 family members that are U.S. citizens. She started a business. So let's get to it, right? Secure the border, and let's do some sane immigration reform for these people that are here. And I'm not saying they're all going to get citizenship. I think there's some arguments to be made that maybe Dreamers should, but there's some people that we could at least give them temporary work permits as long as they pay a fine and we get them a background check and let them still be part of this American dream.
Politics often, it's about finding a common ground. I think most people would hope that both sides could shake hands in the middle of that aisle.
Yep.
That's not always the case, obviously. When we're talking about the Trump administration's current immigration policy, and you kind of touched on it there a little bit, what part of the current policy with the roundups and deportations, what do you agree with this administration?
So I believe and think that the enforcement at the border that he is doing is actually very effective, save for the fact that they use the military for that. But I think what we should do is, talk to Border Patrol, ask them exactly what they need to do, exactly what they're doing right now, so we have near as zero as possible border crossings, illegal border crossings as possible. When it comes to immigration internally, my biggest issue is the fact that, it's arbitrary who's getting picked up. We were told we're going to focus on criminals, and now we're separating families. We're going after kids sometimes. There's U.S. citizens that are getting wrapped up when they're doing sweeps. I think the president should use the time and the resources to go after those criminals. There's 100% agreement between all of us that if you're here in this country, you've done something illegally, you are part of a gang, you're selling drugs, people, including immigrants themselves, we don't want you in this country. And I think if the president would refocus on exactly what he ran on, which is going after those criminal aliens, I think he'd actually be winning a lot more support. But working to solidify the gains that we have in terms of border and border security, I think is something that we should work on together.
When we look at the Lakewood-Riley Act that you co-sponsored as well, in that it requires DHS to detain non-citizens even without a conviction in place. Should those individuals still be allowed a day in court, the due process, or is their legal status and the fact that they were tied to a crime automatic deportation? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, detention doesn't necessarily mean deportation. This is what one of the tools that we know the police as well as ICE and Border Patrol requested, because they know that there are some individuals in this country that unfortunately are criminals and have been consistently kind of running through the prison mill. This is not a one cure-all bill, but it's certainly one of the many tools that we can use to go after some of these criminal aliens that do prey on some of these communities.
But some of these individuals, advocacy groups or what have you, have pushed back saying some of these people that are being deported haven't gone through any type of a due process.
Yeah.
Should there be a due process in place for these individuals?
Sure, absolutely. And the problem with this administration is that you do see them kind of choosing when due process is to their best benefit. Whether it's here, whether it's deporting people to other countries, the skip of due process is something that I think everyone can agree with should be rectified.
When we're looking at some roundups, we've recently reported on ICE sitting outside schools.
Yeah.
Walking along with children, approaching.
Yeah.
Should they be rounding up people outside of schools?
No.
Should there be safe locations where families should be able to?
Traditionally, up until this administration, and actually, under Trump 1, there was places that they were not allowed to operate in unless there was specific information that there was something dangerous happening there. That was schools, religious sites, so churches, and hospitals and medical sites. We can have security, and you could go after bad guys without going to these places. Because when you start going to those places, it has a lot of ramifications for the whole community. Kids stop going to school, parents stop taking their kids to the hospitals or themselves, and then people don't feel like they have the right to worship. And what we have seen already is Catholic, for example, dioceses all over the country are now giving dispensation to their flock not to come to church because they're afraid they're being targeted. That's not the kind of country we want to be in. We want to be able to give people security, give people the opportunity to live their full lives, but at the same time, there's certain areas that we should just have kind of off limits, and I think those are the 3. And so we're actually working on legislation to try to bring that back.
When you're looking at what took place this week from the executive office regarding Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
what are your concerns in the state of Arizona, and are you monitoring that situation? And
We're
what would you tell your
We're,
constituents?
we're monitoring it. Again, this is not a proper use of the military. The military should not be involved in civilian enforcement. Also, unless some of these men and women are particularly trained in this, they're not trained to be police officers, right? And I don't think they're going to bring more security. And at the end, you're going to have a lot of men and women like you did in Los Angeles, just kind of standing around, and unfortunately, you're wasting their time. I think there are ways to actually bring more security to our cities, and it starts with making sure we hire more police officers, give more technology to them. A show of manpower is not going to actually end up doing much of anything for the long term, and this is actually just a total, real performative act, considering that by law he could only do this for 28 days.
At the end of the day, Arizonans obviously care what food costs on
Yeah.
the table. They care about what's the price at the pump, their budget every month. Are they going to be able to afford rent or their mortgage payment or what have you? As these prices still kind of get leveled out from tariffs and looking at the economy, and we're still not sure what the end result will be, what are you doing? What are you focused on right now to potentially make a difference in that?
Well, for example, on the housing side, which is one of the biggest drivers of inflation, I worked with my Republican colleagues to pass one of the biggest bills, I would say biggest, most comprehensive bills to actually bring more affordable housing to the state and to the country. Two of them I actually authored myself to help build more apartments, so that way developers can come borrow money from the government and build more apartments. Another one to really reduce the paperwork on that. And we're going to keep on doing more and more in regards to that. Look, when it comes to cost of living, one of the things we're trying to do is stop some of the tariffs that are going to increase the cost of food. A good example is tomatoes. We import a lot of tomatoes from Mexico.
The tariff is already in place.
The tariff is already in place, but it has not been really since the 1990s, and there was an exempt for many years. With those tariffs going up, we're now going to have to buy more expensive tomatoes from Florida with different quality. They actually essentially have to be, the color has to be changed chemically in order for them to even be red. And it's going to cost a lot of our Arizona producers, because it gets mixed into our salad. It's going to cost them more money, and it's going to end up costing a lot of jobs. So we're actively trying to push back and get those tariffs rescinded. And we're looking at anything else, like how can we also bring down the costs when it comes to production of food, when it comes to egg prices. There's everything possible.
It's one thing, sorry to cut you off, I
Sure.
know we're limited on time, but it's one thing to say, this is what we're looking at, this is what we're planning on doing. Even this is the piece of legislation that I'm going to be on the floor
Sure.
talking about. Passing it is another issue.
Passing is another issue, but we've actually been fairly successful. For being a first-year senator, we passed and authored out of our committee 2 bills, which it passed in a bipartisan manner, which means it'll get a floor vote. We co-sponsored, I think, another 6 bills that will also be getting to the floor. It is difficult, but we do have, I've had some success working with Republican colleagues getting that on stuff that we can all agree on, especially when it comes to housing, something that everyone here in Arizona understands is a big problem.
All right, final question, because I know you have to go. Lower Basin Agreement expires at the end of 2026. I know
Yeah.
you've been a big advocate for tribal land,
Yep.
both infrastructure and water rights. Are you already in talks tied to renegotiating that? What does that look like for the state of Arizona? What kind of fight?
For the basin negotiation or tribal water settlement?
The Lower Basin Agreement that expires at the end of next year. There's no expiration on the overall Colorado
Yeah, yeah.
River Compact, but
No, I'm sorry, but you brought up tribal. Oh, you're just saying
just because in
my
general, 'cause
interest.
your
Okay,
interest,
yes.
You've been
Yeah,
focused on
yes.
that, but what's your focus when it comes to Arizona water? That's a big concern.
Yeah.
And this,
So the Bureau of Reclamation, the Commissioner of the Bureau of Reclamation is an Arizonan. So we are very keen on knowing that he understands our issues. We do think that negotiations are going well. The biggest problem is going to be should we hit a drought with the current agreement that we think is going to come down, because we're going to have to do some cuts. Internally as a state, we're going to have to make some decisions about where this water is going to come from, what happens when these cuts come, what can we do to help some of these rural areas that really need water, to get them water, maybe help them get less water intensive crops. I want to help and have helped brought some infrastructure dollars back to the state in order for us to build the infrastructure we need for water reclamation and conservation. Like, for example, if you look down at the Gila River, look at their water canals, you have a lot of covered water canals that helps us save water. We're going to do a lot more of that in order for us to both honor the agreement, but also even when the agreement is honored, because we have a drop in the water height at Lake Mead, there's going to be a lot of parts of rural Arizona and even parts of Arizona that are going to be without water, and this is the time for us to start making that investment now.
Could take a lot of federal dollars to make that
A
happen.
lot of federal dollars, especially for these rural areas because they're surrounded by federal land.
All right, Senator,
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Gracias. Thank you.